Hello everyone, Santer here, and you'll notice that I have my microphone up. I have replaced the cable, the offending cable, and hopefully that makes the sound a lot more stable and normal and not weird like it was last month. So, lots of things this month. It's felt kind of busy to me. The first thing is that it's been a little bit rough because I had a double whammy. Towards the beginning of the month, I started feeling my allergy symptoms come up. I had itchy eyes, I was sneezing a bunch. So I'm really allergic to alder, apparently, in particular. And alder pollen, it usually lasts for about a month or so. And March or April is sort of the time frame to expect it. So I was anticipating it coming up. And things have been kind of warmer earlier in the month. That kind of made it it felt like spring was coming kind of early this year. So I wasn't surprised that I started feeling symptoms. The primary effect of the allergy is just so much more mucus production that then kind of gets into my lungs and clogs things up and makes it breathing difficult. And this tends to be particularly bad at night for a variety of reasons. I think I mentioned it at various times, but I often will have kind of a low-grade nocturnal anxiety, or just get a little bit more anxious about things at night. Not about anything specific. Just nighttime feels lonely and isolated, and I don't know, there's just little various factors. It's nothing major, but it does mean that my response tends to be to have my muscles a little bit more tensed up, which combined with other things like it's normally not too big of a problem. It can make it a little bit hard for me to want to get to sleep because I feel like I need to stay alert, I guess, stay active. But when combined with something else that might be impeding my breathing ways, it can apply just enough to cross that threshold where it starts to become a problem. So, plus there's a couple of other things. Staying well hydrated helps keep the mucus from getting too thick. And so when it starts getting thick, that starts causing problems with my breathing. But I can't drink water while I'm sleeping for obvious reasons, I hope. And on top of that, I think the lying down posture tends to let mucus drip into my lungs more easily from my nasal cavities. So I think that there's several factors that kind of collude to make nighttime worse for me, particularly while sleeping. So that started acting up, around the 8th or so. I have in my notes. Guess what else was happening about then? Daylight saving time hit. So I got a double whammy of daylight saving time mucking about with schedules, plus allergies disrupting my sleep. And I can mostly keep them under control by staying inside and wearing a mask when I do need to go outside, and trying to avoid too much moving air around that might stir up pollen that's fallen onto the ground or whatever. I should probably vacuum again just to take care of any. But I'm very, very sensitive to alder pollen. So it's a very frustrating allergy, but I'll take a seasonal allergy over an all the time allergy. So that double whammy has really disrupted my sleep and made my sleep worse. And my sleep schedule was doing okay before those things hit, but it got thrashed. And it's been kind of thrashed by those. So I'm kind of in the going to bed at 3 a.m. time now, which is not ideal, but I'm also not necessarily sleeping super great. So it's been kind of a frustrating thing, but it's just how it goes, right? Unfortunately, my body developed a bad histamine response, and I have to deal with it. But there's been some good stuff happening this month as well, so it's not just been getting whammied by that. In fact, at the start of the month, I have in my notes that played Unsolved Case and Unboxing the Cryptic Killer with an internet friend, and that was good times. Those are co-op puzzle-solving games. One is kind of like a demo for the style, and then the other is more of a full game. We actually finished that demo and then saw that the full game was on sale, so we picked that up. Had fun playing through that together. So that was good times. And so that was at the start of the month. Also, my sister got me a piece of pyrite. I like pyrite. I like fool's gold. I think it's really cool. I like how geometric it is. She and my mom went to a rock and gem show that day and picked that up. So I've gotten a lot of things done. I've finished the, combo poem article on being aromantic, which I was happy to get that finished. It was a weird one to try to figure out how to write. What I find is there are certain aspects of sexual topics that are really, really hard to talk about frankly, because I fear the assumptions or other things that people will be reading into it. Where I felt the medium of poetry ended up working better for enabling me to cut through that feeling of needing to be defensive. And so a good chunk of it starts off with a poem that's trying to go over just sort of how things feel for me. And then I had a bit of a more thinky analytical article bit going into it. So I will link that below in the description. I also had previously at some point finished a poem called The Boat of Belief that I wrote at one point when I was feeling challenged, as I often do, wrestling with doubts and other such things. And so I wrote a poem about that experience that I then, once I'd finished that article, the previous article poem thing up on being aromantic, I went ahead and checked that over. I'm like, oh, this is just fine, and published that as well. So that came out very short order afterwards. I have been working on my next article, but it's been a longer one. So it's coming along. I'm in the last main section before writing some sort of conclusion, that I think I've gotten through the bulk of the hard parts of writing, in terms of writing for it, but it has been a bit of a challenge in some parts. So I'm looking forward to editing it and seeing how things kind of feel and flow, but I have been making progress on that, so hopefully it will be able to go up early next month. It's kind of getting too late this month to really expect it to come up this month. But so I have been working on that. I've been working on some other projects as well. My game is coming along. It's just making content. It takes time. It takes time to make content. But I made one of the big major cities in the game, which is composed of so many different maps. And don't try to draw a map of the whole thing, because it's complete nonsense, but that's fine. It doesn't have to work. Like, here's the thing that I've learned from watching randomizer playthroughs of video games, or people have shuffled entrances, is that things might feel weird at first, but then our brains just kind of get used to it. And it's just kind of accept it after a while, and it doesn't have to line up. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to configure in a way that's, logical or whatever. As long as there's the connection point, our brains will kind of just work with the transition. If there's a transition, our brains will work with it. It'll handle the cut. So I'm happy about getting sort of the layout anyway of that city done. I mean, I still need to flesh out the maps. I still need to populate them with NPCs and dialogue and all sorts of things. But I finished figuring out the layout, and it is quite large. But that's what I wanted. So the game's coming together. Just a lot to make for it. Let's see. In terms of other game playing things, I have been continuing to play through Cookie Cutter. So I've been enjoying that. It's actually came out with a big update recently to add voice acting to the rest of the dialogue and not just the major parts, and bug fixes and other things. So I've been enjoying playing that. It's an interesting Metroidvania. Not going to be the taste of everyone. I think I said that last time as well, but I have been enjoying it. I've also been playing Guild Wars 2, as you might expect, with the Janthir Wilds update. So I've been enjoying where the story has been going. I'm looking forward to seeing how they wrap it up. I like the new map overall. I like that ArenaNet keeps experimenting, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about them as a studio, is that they're trying to figure out how to make engaging content for the player, how to make engaging gameplay areas that have some longevity, that feel worth coming back to. And so with the Mistburn Wilds, the Mistburn Barrens, I think is the map name. I don't know. I just know what it looks like and what's got going on in it. The outskirts of Bavanisos, which I'm hoping we get into Bavanisos. I'm hoping the next update brings us proper Mersat weapons, like the Guild Wars 1 weapon set that you can get from the bonus mission pack, because those are really cool, particularly the staff I'm quite fond of. But we have the scavenged ones in this, the scavenged obsidian weapons in this expansion, which are fine. But the experiment that they're doing with, okay, having a scheduled meta that goes off every 2 or 3 hours is like, there's some positives and negatives to it. And so this is like, what if we had our amusement park ride? Like, what if we had several smaller rides that go much more frequently? And it's like, okay, this is an interesting experiment. It's interesting for them to try things out. I do find it amusing that the Northern Branch, which felt like a bit of an auto-scroller, they did some things to try to make it, to try to speed it up some, which I do appreciate. But I've been enjoying that. I've been continuing to do stuff with Magic. I did a lot of experimenting with my standard deck, because standard has been happening at my local game store recently. So I've been experimenting with what I've been doing with that. And so I'm continuing to look forward to playing it. Hopefully I get to play it tonight, the day I am recording this, because I've just recently done some updates to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how those play. The current iteration is using a combination of like plot and adventure stuff, along with Rocco, I don't know, Street Chef from the Aftermath, the March of the Machines Aftermath mini set, because he's bonkers, and I'm excited to play with him, to play with this particular configuration. But just like the idea of, oh, I plot this thing and then I can cast it for free with, cast Rocco and then cast the plotted thing for free from exile to trigger Rocco's ability. It's like, oh, that's actually a really good combo. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all kind of shakes out. I did some experiments where I had him, had a copy last week. And so I'm like, oh, I'm consolidating things down now, see what direction I want to go. And it's pretty cool. The other big thing that's been going on, I'm just scanning through. When I'm looking down, I'm scanning through the titles of my dear patrons' entries. I've been working a little bit more on the NeoCities website. I'll link it at some point, but I'm not. I mean, you can probably find it pretty easily, but I'm wanting to get a few more sections finished before it's like proper like launch. Long term, it's going to be kind of like the most in-depth about page combined with like a place for me to put fiction writing. It's kind of what my plan is. The blog is great for some things, but it also, I want something that feels a bit more evergreen. Like, you can go into the blog archives, obviously, and go find stuff, but it's not the same as something like what I'm going to want to do on the NeoCities website. So I'm doing some stuff with that. Let's see. I also watched several movies from the library. So we watched Deadpool and Wolverine, which I was personally quite disappointed by. I don't feel like any of the two sequels have been anywhere near as good as the first Deadpool movie. Like, they have confused like bad words or crude and vulgar language for humor, and they have confused gore for action, and it's just not working for me. Like, everybody has the same sort of, oh, we can say these words now, potty mouth, and it's just not interesting. It's very juvenile. It feels very, very juvenile, where it's like, the joke is thing exists, right? This socially taboo thing exists or whatever. And it's like, okay, so you're trying to go for what, shock humor? And it's like, meh. So there's some funny parts. I like a lot of the fourth wall breaking stuff, some of the jokes. that they have with some of the environmental storytelling was quite amusing, but overall I found it pretty underwhelming. Let's see. We also watched Turning Red, which I quite enjoyed. That was a much better movie, much better movie than Deadpool and Wolverine, in my opinion. It felt like it had a level of honesty about sort of the coming of age experience that, and as well as what our, like, finding our own identity separate from our parents, that I really appreciated. And like what it means to maybe embrace a part of yourself that is challenging, but has positives as well. So I don't know. There's a lot going on with that one that I enjoyed. And then we also watched Wakanda Forever, which, like, was a breath of fresh air in terms of Marvel's cinematic universe, which so much has felt like it's all the characters are written to be the same snarky kind of anti-hero. And it's like, it's nice to have a movie that's not that and that's trying to wrestle with themes of grief. So I don't know. I enjoyed it okay. I wasn't like blown away by it, but like it was decent. Let's see. I've also been watching a bunch of anime. Solo Leveling is one that I've been really enjoying. But there's been a bunch of others that I've enjoyed as well. I left my A rank party to help my students, or I forget these names are so long and I don't remember them, but I remember what it looks like. But this is one that I've been enjoying. Or I mean, I find there's a lot of interesting world building that happens. There's a whole subgenre of noble woman dies and then gets sent back in time and has to figure out how to avert her own death. How that's a subgenre that's somehow developed, there's different flavors of it. Oftentimes it gets paired with kind of an isekai thing where it's like, okay, this woman ends up as the villain in a dating sim game or whatever. But it's a very interesting sort of like social drama / like puzzle genre. Like it's social drama and like puzzle solving, like almost kind of mystery, kind of puzzle solving. It's very interesting, and it's one that I've been enjoying. I just watched one in that sort of vein recently, and I could not tell you the name offhand because that's not the important part to me. Other things, though, speaking of that, I've been doing some reading lately, which is atypical of me. I'm not a huge reader, but I've been reading the light novels for So I'm a Spider, So What? Started with the second one, weirdly enough. So I really enjoyed the anime of So I'm a Spider, So What? Like, the world building in particular really hooked me, and there's a lot of things that I was enjoying about it. But, like, it only goes so far, and then it kind of stops. And, like, I want to see more. So I was like, okay, does the library have it? Yeah. Read the first issue of the manga, and then accidentally got the light novel, the second volume of the light novel, and then read that, and I'm like, oh, I like this a lot. I like this even better. Like, I don't need to spend a bunch of time with a bunch of pictures and trying to read sound effects and stuff like that. What gets me is, I just want the story, right? Like, that might be a weird way of putting it. Like, the art is nice, but, like, I'm here for the story, not the art, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't need the art in there. And I enjoy the internal monologue style that So I'm a Spider, So What has, where it's like, oh, this is first person internal monologue. And they do some really good, like, from the same event from different perspectives. So that's what, Rashomon or whatever. But they just do some really good moments of that like let you feel things from different angles that I really enjoy. But I've been somewhat voraciously reading that. Took me a while to be able to read book 4 because for some reason our local library doesn't have it, but we were able to do it interlibrary loan to get it from a library in Colorado. So thank you, Colorado Library, for letting me read your book for an entire day and then send it back. But the anime goes through book 5. For anybody who's curious. Now, the books have significantly more detail. You'll get a lot better sense of character motivations. Sorry, that bumped my desk. A lot better sense of character motivations. You'll get a lot more in-depth examination of like events that happen, and it goes into more detail on a number of different things. So like there's just some stuff where they cut it out or whatever for the anime to abridge it, where it's like, okay, this adds something, but it's not like you don't have to have it for the narrative or whatever. Or you're able to like condense things. But the events overall, like through book 5. So I was very excited to read book 6. Waiting for book 7, 8, and 9 from the library, because I read these in like a day. It's a good chunk of my day, but it's my, I read it in a day sort of thing, because I'm really enjoying the series. So if you want an interesting world building sort of thing going on, I really quite like So I'm a Spider, So What. So I've spent, a couple times here and there reading books 4, 5, and 6. And it's very exciting to read book 6 and finally get past the anime. Speaking of reading, there's been another book that I've been reading. This one right here. I think I might have mentioned this last time because I've been reading it for a while. It's one that I'm like reading little bits at a time. But so like not just like reading it through. But I've been really impressed by this one. Revelation for the Rest of Us by Scott McKnight with Cody Matchett. Cody Matchett, it sounds like, was a student of Scott McKnight's who helped with a lot of the research phase. Subtitles: A Prophetic Call to Follow Jesus as a Distant Disciple. I've been really, really, really impressed with this book. There's a lot that it does, and I would highly recommend it to anyone, but especially to Christians, and especially to American Christians. The basic, like I'm almost done with it now. There's like just a few pages left, so I'll probably be finishing it like tomorrow or the day after. But because I only read like 10-15 minutes a day of it, but a few pages a day sort of thing. But a basic summary of the book is that saying, okay, what if this model that we've taken for reading the book of Revelation is just wrong? So what I mean by that is, like, if you're like me, you've grown up with the idea that Revelation is a book of prophecy. It is predicting future events, and there's all these symbols, and we're trying to understand what future event does this symbol refer to. That is a newish concept. That is not how the book of Revelation has traditionally been read, as I understand it, for the past, like, it first started becoming a thing, like, maybe a couple hundred years ago, like 200 at most sort of thing. I don't remember. This is where I'm, like, flipping through. Whatever. It talks about like this, when this sort of started. So it's a speculative, predictive sort of way of reading the book. And he's like, no, he makes the case, and I think it's a very compelling case, that is not the proper way to read the book. The proper way to read the book is a symbology of archetypes. It is highlighting a couple of very important things. One is the timeless concept of Babylon. That is the empire, the imperial force. And so he describes it as Babylons are these imperial worldly forces. You've got the way of the dragon being the devil or Satan. This is like the way of living, right? In contrast to the way of the Lamb, or the way of God, or the way of Jesus. And the book is basically challenging us to be like, hey, like the book of Revelation is challenging us to say, here are these symbols of these different forces. So like imperial power and propaganda being the beasts, right? The famous beasts. And then you've got the judgments on Babylon, on the beasts, on Satan, that God is pouring out and being like totally wiping away evil, like judging evil and wiping it away in order to make a clean slate on which to establish the New Jerusalem. And the New Jerusalem is not Babylon, and Babylon cannot be the New Jerusalem. It must be wiped away. But there's a great deal of redemptive power as well, where it's like, it talks about the kings of the earth bringing the treasures into New Jerusalem, right? And it's like, not everything is going to succumb to the way of the dragon and things like that. There's a lot of redemptive stuff that happens, but it's important to understand these as symbols rather than as predictions, because then they have more power, and we can begin to discern and see around us the influence of the way of the dragon, and we can begin to see, the ways of Satan that influence our world and influence it towards misery. There's a list in here of, you know what? The table of contents will have it. I'm quite sure. Of the character. So it's like going over who are the different characters. So things like Babylon, the dragon, and she translates as wild things instead of beasts because the concept is more of a feral thing, an untamable thing. And so like, let's see, page 51 here. I flip to it. So the characteristics he has for Babylon is it's anti-God, or at least anti-God for, the God that Jews and Christians worship. And so like it has its own sort of gods, right? It's opulent, so it is indulgent, and it's all about sort of wealth. It's murderous. It doesn't care who it kills. It exerts force. It rules through force and fear. Talking about how brutal the Pax Romana was, the Roman peace, right? It cares about its image, so its image is one of the big things. It wants to impress, right? It wants to be impressive. It's militaristic. It accumulates everything through force, right? Again, military might and force is important to it. It is economically exploitative. Income inequality is part and parcel with it, for example, and it's all about accumulating its own wealth. And then it's arrogant, and it believes itself above everyone. So like it has different ways of summarizing this list in other places, but it is like, these are descriptions of what it's like. And the way that then the book is, so that's kind of like a taste of some of the analysis, right? Of like, okay, what's Babylon like? And so there's a lot of the things like what it's obsessed with and things like that. So he goes through in writing this book and goes through like, okay, what are these different symbols and how are we interpreting them? And like challenging concepts like the millennium, or like there's a lot of different numerical symbols. A millennium can just mean a long time, right? But like the whole 666 thing, right? That number, or 616, depending upon what you're talking about. That is a reference to Emperor Nero. So not everybody, like we haven't always used Arabic numerals, right? We call them Arabic numerals because we got them from a culture. And so what did they do? Well, in order to do numbers, they used letters to stand in for numbers. We know this from Roman numerals, XVI and all that. Those were just letters that they assigned numerical values to, so they could represent numbers with letters. So they're overloading the meaning. And so people would, as they do, play with that and be like, oh, what is the sum of this thing? And so, like, Nero, the sum of Nero's name is 666. If you spell it in a slightly different way, depending upon like how it's being translated into whatever languages, you basically drop one of the values, which gets you 616. But that's all it is a reference to Emperor Nero, right? And it's not like a microchip version number or something that we should be looking for in the future or whatever. And so the last part of this book is then, okay, now that we've gone through all of the symbology in Revelation, let's begin applying that to our modern world. And so he is not pulling any punches. It has been just a very powerful ending, a fantastic ending. Talking about, in part, how this the way of Babylon, the way of the dragon, has infiltrated the church, particularly in America. And I've been finding it quite potent. So I definitely recommend it a read. So that's been a book that has been very impressing me. And it frankly, it makes Revelation feel like it makes so much more sense, and makes the book feel so much more relevant. So I think that kind of summarizes things for this month pretty well. I mean, I've been slowly plugging away at things. I've been wrestling with how my sleep has been, but it's been positives. It's been some struggles. It's just life. So anyway, I think I will go ahead and wrap things up there. So I will thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, everyone, take care and goodbye.